Hi, I'm Veronica Milsom and welcome to Random Book Talk, the only monthly online interactive web show that brings you exclusive interviews with your favourite authors from our headquarters here at Random House Australia Publishing. This month we're talking to Rosalie Ham, who's the best-selling author of The Dressmaker. Her new book is called There Should Be More Dancing and it's Random House Australia's Book of the Month for July. Welcome, Rosalie. Talk us through the story behind There Should Be More Dancing.
There Should Be More Dancing is about Marjorie Blandon, and she's lived in Brunswick for about 60 years, and her passions are her dead sister, cross-stitch and proverbs. Tragically, Marjorie lives her life according to the wisdom of the desktop calendars and then wonders why it all went terribly wrong. She almost messes it up completely, but not too late. She realises that she's missed a lot, and so she rectifies that and spends the last few years of her life doing a bit of dancing with her enemy.
Oh, okay. So it is written from the perspective of a 79-year-old. What was it that made you want to write it from the perspective of an elderly person?
Often you walk past elderly people and you look at them and you make judgments and assumptions about them, if indeed you see them at all. And often people don't understand that there's a person in there, and I just wanted to get behind the eyes of an elderly person and speak on her behalf and talk about bunions and arthritis and things like that, but also their perspective on the world. Yeah. And Marjorie was formed a very long time ago and she hasn't managed to quite shift with the times. So it was interesting to me, A, to write in first person for a sustained period of time, and also to look out from behind Marjorie at the world.
Because you also worked at a nursing home for many years when you trained as a nurse's aide, is that right?
Yes.
So what did you learn from the elderly folk when you were there?
A lot. I learned that a lot of them live a brilliant life and a wonderful, fulfilling life and they don't go any further than the local Red Cross or the bowling club or church, and they stay in the one neighbourhood because that's the way it was. The most modern thing they ever had was a telephone. And the other thing I learned was that a lot of them get to the nursing home and think, I didn't do it well, and they regret that. So, but you learn so much from old people, it's very hard to, put it into one small amount of time. I learned a lot. So
unlike your two previous novels that are set in sort of isolated Australian communities, this one is set in Brunswick, as you were saying, which is the suburb that you're currently living in.
Yes.
Now, how much of the neighbours that live around Marjorie Blandon are people that you've sort of observed around Brunswick?
As that particular suburb changes, and it is changing because it's inner Melbourne and it's being gentrified, you see the old people disappearing and vanishing. And so I've taken elements from every old person that I've ever met or elderly person I've ever met and attributed them to Marjorie. When I first moved to Brunswick, the houses were pretty much all old cottages that were falling down, and now I assume as people die the houses are bought and they're renovated, and the urban wars in the local park and the school students in there smoking have been replaced by toddlers, and there's a queue for the swing. So all of those things have changed in Brunswick. And the other thing is, I noticed with some interest, when they renovated the pub, the barflies left that pub and walked half a mile to the next pub, and as soon as the renovation was finished they walked back again and resumed their same bar stools. So it's interesting because as some things change and that generation, that older generation dies or leaves or moves or whatever happens to them, things change, but things also stay the same in a strange kind of way.
So are you one of the newcomers into Brunswick who's moved into a renovated place?
No, I'm old. I've been there 20 years.
Are you going to be there for another 40 years?
I am, and I'm not going to a nursing home, and you're going to have to take me out of their feet first, and that's the end of it. Yeah.
I did love so many of the little foibles about Marjorie, the embroidery on multiple things around her house. But there were also like intensely sad moments in the novel as well. How did you sort of strike a balance between the humour and the complexities of elderly people?
I didn't actually have to try. I don't try with humour or sadness because from my eyes that's the way it is. It's funny and it's sad. And old people are funny and they are sad, so I just wrote what I saw.
There does seem to be a lot that would suggest that Marjorie regrets some of the things that's happened in her life, but I feel like the title of the novel, There Should Be More Dancing, really inspires hope. Can you tell us about the title?
That's right. Marjorie actually does slowly come to understand that she might possibly have got things wrong, and it all comes to head in a hotel room and then later, or at their Sunday lunch, and she comes to understand that she may possibly have got things wrong. She doesn't really admit it or try to make amends because it is too late, but she does find herself in a circumstance within her last few years. There will be an opportunity to not be so serious and to live without the regret and the grief, and to let go of Cecily, her dead sister that she's spoken to all these years, who was a comfort and a hindrance. So there's a sense in the end that she will let go of her and perhaps do a little bit of dancing, which is what she should have been doing a long time ago.
Yeah. How do you feel that your writing has evolved since the massive success of The Dressmaker?
It's interesting you say massive success of The Dressmaker, because as a writer it doesn't translate to sitting in a room on your own for 4 years typing, but what that success did, it made me look at my writing and think, oh, I'd better actually take this very seriously now and try and improve. So some people like what I write and they don't like things to be explained to them or described. And so I'm trying to work towards doing something that's evocatively descriptive, intuitive, without being didactic, if you get that, and making my characters more rounded. And I just want to get better at it and write longer sagas. No, that's a joke. I don't want to write sagas at all.
So what's next for you? The Dressmaker is being made into a feature. What will be your involvement in that?
Nothing, but I intend to be in every scene there is, walking behind the camera, dancing. No, look, I won't have any involvement in that. I'm sure that they'll show me a script at some point, but it's the child of the producer and the writer-director now, and I'm happy for them to do it because they've got the right idea. I have got another novel that I'm circling and making notes about, and I'm going to return to the country for that one because I wrote this one based in the city and found that I probably wrote the same thing anyway. About isolation. So yes, I'm working on something.
And you can't forget the blogs. You're going to be blogging.
Oh yes, I'll be blogging.
Yeah,
I'll be blogging.
Yeah, that's your priority.
That is a priority
for Random House Australia.
And it's a new skill.
Good. And the final question, the question we're asking everyone, what's the book that most influenced your life and why?
Do you know, I've thought long and hard about this question. I could say that it was To Kill a Mockingbird because it was at that age, and I particularly loved Calpurnia. And I loved Calpurnia because she was a lightning rod in ways. She took Jem and Scout to her church, and there was a little bit of reverse racism, and I loved that little role that she had in that. But then I thought about it and I decided that it was actually Pride and Prejudice. And the reason it was Pride and Prejudice is because I was reading it as a teenager, and in the small country town that I came from, it was all happening around me and I could relate to everything in it. And I thought, I can do this, I should write one of those. I didn't, of course, until 30 years later, but I'd have to say Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah, good one. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you,
Rosalie
Veronica.
Ham. If you're interested in reading the first chapter, then head to randomhouse.com.au and download it there. Join us next month. We'll be interviewing Nick Earls about his new book, The Fix, which is Random House Australia's Book of the Month for August.